Welcome to this episode of Filming the Wild. Today we're going to talk about the step-by-step process that I use when I plan a wildlife shoot. Before I even hit record on the camera, there are so many factors that actually go into getting the shot. And I wanted to kind of take the moment to break down the exact process that I use when I plan a wildlife shoot. If you're interested in learning more about wildlife filmmaking and the tips and tricks that I use, be sure to go ahead and subscribe to this channel. There's so much more in-depth content on the channel. Give this video a thumbs up and leave me a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you would like me to consider for producing in a next video to help talk a little bit more about the wildlife filmmaking process. But before we get into the whole process of how I plan a shoot, let's roll that intro.
My name is Alan Lacey, and I'm a wildlife filmmaker, cameraman, and producer. I've worked on shows for National Geographic, PBS Nature, Disney Plus, and the BBC. Join me as I explore the amazing world of nature and show you what it's like filming the wild.
So one of the most important things that I tell people when planning a wildlife shoot is you have to know your subject. What is it that you're actually trying to film, right? So for instance, if you're wanting to create a story around burrowing owls, you're gonna wanna know exactly what's the behavior of burrowing owls. When are they most active? Are they active in the morning? Are they active in the evening? What are the best chances of actually being able to capture the footage that you're looking to get? So if you're wanting to film the adults feeding the chicks, bringing back insects and bugs and rodents, you need to know when are burrowing owls doing that. So one of the big things you need to do is look at the natural behavior and the natural history of burrowing owls. Do some research on the burrowing owls. Find out the most optimal times of year when they're doing this kind of behavior. So in the case of burrowing owls, you'd learn, oh, they do this primarily in the late spring, like we're talking April, May, June, depending upon the region that you live in. Most often it's towards the end of May, early June, when you actually have a several-week window when the adults are bringing the young food. So understanding when that's going to take place is important to know how to set yourself up for success. All right, so I kind of touched on it a little bit in terms of understanding the behavior, but behavior often is driven cyclically. So certain species do different types of behavior at different times of the year. So if you're looking to film burrowing owls feeding their young, you know now, you got to look at those several-week windows in the end of May, early June. But if you're going to film other species doing different types of seasonal-based things, understanding when that takes place and doing that research is extremely important to knowing how to get that footage. All right, so for example, with the burrowing owls, for instance, they have a 28-day incubation period, and then it takes about 12 days once the eggs hatch before the burrowing owl chicks venture outside. And then at like day 25 to 30, they're flying, they're already fledging. So you have a very short window, about 2 to 2.5 weeks to work with while they're grounded, so you can film all that interesting behavior of the adults bringing food and helping the young chicks grow up and all the quirky little personalities that burrowing owls have. So understanding that timeline is really important when you're trying to actually capture the footage so you can build your sequence. Another really big tip about planning a wildlife shoot is actually understanding where the best locations are. So burrowing owls, for example, live all over the western part of the US, Florida, different parts of the Americas. So where do you actually want to go to capture that footage? Now there's several resources that you can use. There's things like eBirder, different reported sites using Facebook groups or anything like that, but also understanding the type of terrain that burrowing owls like, low, flat, grasslands, etc. also help in knowing where to find them. But the best thing to do is also do what we call a location scout. So getting out to the location, scout the area ahead of time. And you can do this nowadays through modern uses like Google Maps, where you can actually go online and see what it looks like before you get there. And if you know there's a reported sighting of a burrowing owl or whatever species you're looking for in that area, you can kind of take a look at it ahead of time. Wildlife is always unpredictable, so kind of getting a basic understanding of what that area looks like ahead of time is actually really helpful. So once you're doing your research and you kind of find your different areas that you're interested in, let's say you narrow it down to a couple locations, now it's like finding out which one of those locations is going to give you the best opportunity to actually get the footage you want. Is it going to have, are there multiple owls at the site? Is it only one breeding pair? And does that mean your opportunities are limited, or are there multiple pairs of owls that you have to choose from? All those kind of factors play in, and that's part of the location scout. Now, if you're not able to actually go and scout ahead of time or use online services, if for some reason it doesn't have really good quality to be able to see, you can also reach out to local scientists and biologists that are working in those areas and get their advice as well on best places to go. Another really big important part about actually planning a wildlife shoot is the location itself. Are you going to need to stay there at a hotel so that you're able to charge your batteries and get all your gear and keep it clean so that you can get out day to day and film? Or is this a more remote location? Are you going to have to bring a tent and extra gear that you're going to need to help refuel your batteries with its solar charging or solar energy, etc.? Those are really big important things to consider. But also more than that, it's like what's your food situation like? What's the weather conditions going to be? Other things are, do you need a permit to actually have access to the area? Do you need to get permission if it's a private property? Do you need to get permission to actually film? Doing that research ahead of time and getting that all planned and taken care of. So all you have to do is arrive, show up, start filming. Now you might be wondering, okay, now I've got all this planning, I've put it all together, but now I've got a week of time in the field and I'm filming everything. How do I take all of that and put it into a wildlife documentary? Well, lucky for you, I'm actually putting all of this stuff together in a one-stop shop course that you guys can take. You can learn all about my ins and outs, the processes that I take from development to planning to the research to the actual shooting, post-production, all the way to distribution. I'm putting all of that stuff in one easy-to-access place. If all this sounds helpful, just head to filmingthewild.com/courses, put your information in, and you can sign up to stay up to date when I'm about ready to launch the course. There's no commitment, no upfront stuff, just a heads up when it's on its way and it's ready to be released so that you have the first opportunity to sign up for the course itself. All right, enough of that. Let's jump right back in. So other really big important factors when you're planning a wildlife shoot is understanding what is the gear that you're going to use. What cameras are you wanting to work with? What lenses do you want to do? If you're filming, again, let's say burrowing owls, you're going to need a lens that can reach these guys because they're pretty small. So you can't expect to be able to get good quality footage with a regular like 24mm to 70mm lens. It's just not going to happen unless you're like doing things remotely and putting it all by itself, which that's actually pretty cool. But most likely you're going to need some kind of telephoto zoom lens of something roughly in that 600mm range or greater if you can. That's going to get you the best quality footage of burrowing owls. And this is just from experience. There's a certain distance that they kind of get uncomfortable. So if you're about 50, 60 feet away, that's about as close as they like to be. Sometimes you can get closer if they're more habituated to people, but you still change the behavior of the owl when you're that close, even if you're 50, 60 feet away. So filming in a blind is extremely helpful in those situations. So that brings me to my next point. Sometimes you need to be able to film wildlife utilizing a blind. So understanding the behavior again of the animal, whether or not you can film them just out in the open, or if you need to like seclude yourself in a blind to try to hide, and so you can actually reduce the stress on the animal. And to me, that's the most important thing. You want to be able to have the animal comfortable exhibiting its natural behavior. I don't want to be influencing its behavior because it's worried about me and what I'm going to do. I would much rather be in a blind and the animal goes about its business as if no one's there. To me, one of the most important parts of planning a wildlife shoot is having shot lists. This all goes back to story, which again, there's that course I'm going to be teaching here soon. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and sign up. But it all comes back to story. What are you trying to showcase? So if you're trying, in this instance, let's keep working with the burrowing owls. If you want to showcase the adults bringing food in, we're going to need shots of the adults in the air catching bugs. We're going to need shots of them flying to the kids to give them food. We're going to need the interaction between the parents giving them the actual insect and feeding them, and then the young doing their crazy little antics and behavior. So we're going to kind of tell that story. We need to think about the shots. So creating a shot list is an extremely important part of the process. And then when you're in the field and you're actually working to get those shots, you can reference that shot list and go, oh, I need to get this. And you can work on waiting for those moments to happen. Wildlife is so unpredictable, so you never know. So it's really good to have some kind of guide that helps you and influences you on how you capture the footage that you need. Another big takeaway, this is more of just kind of a heads up, but being flexible is important. You can do all the planning, you can have the best shoot put together on paper, you know exactly where you're gonna be, you know exactly who you're gonna work with, you know the behavior of the animal, you have everything figured out down to a science. And then you show up and nothing happens according to plan. This is actually quite common in wildlife because you just can't expect a wild animal to behave consistently. They're a wild animal. So being able to be flexible and adapt to things that happen on the fly is extremely important. Sometimes you expect, oh, the burrowing owls are going to be having their young at this time of year. So you plan it, you get there, and maybe you're 2 weeks early. So those things do happen. It's unfortunate, but having those contingencies set in place where you're like, okay, maybe if I'm early, I can be able to come back in a couple of weeks when they're going to be on time. Or if they've already been there, you have to wait till next year if they've already gone through the process and you've missed it. So being able to be flexible, which is why having multiple locations is great in your scouting process, because if maybe this site isn't working, maybe you can go to the other, and maybe that will save the day. So being flexible and being able to adapt is, I think, one of the most important things about how you go about planning your wildlife shoot, because if you have that as a contingency, it really helps when those things happen. All right, so I hope all of that information was extremely helpful for you guys. Planning a wildlife shoot is really fun, and I always love the process of diving into a subject and exploring all the potential things that I could put together in a film or sequence that I'm doing. Now, a lot of this for me is based in an actual documentary work that I do, but you can do this kind of stuff if you're just looking to just get footage of a particular species. You don't need an entire wildlife documentary and sequences, but if you understand the species and you can go out on location and get that footage, knowing a little bit about how to go about planning is an important thing. I hope the information that I have just shared has been extremely helpful to you guys. I enjoy providing good value and sharing the things that I've learned along the way, because to me it's important. I had to learn the hard way, kind of do it trial and error. And if I can share anything with you guys that can help you get on your journey without having to go through the same mistakes that I've made, to me that's important. If you want to go deeper into the whole process about making a wildlife film or documentary, please head on over to filmingthewild.com/courses. There's also a link in the description below where you can sign up, and then I will send you information as soon as I'm ready to launch the course. All right, so if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel if you're interested in learning more about wildlife filmmaking or just enjoying the journey itself when I release other wildlife documentaries and films and behind the scenes moments. It's a lot of fun. Would love to have you join if you haven't already clicked that subscribe button. Oh, and I would love to hear from you guys. If there's a topic or something that interests you and you would like to see me cover it, drop a comment in the comment section below. I would love to answer your questions there, become more of a community online, and hell, who knows, maybe I'll consider producing a video that talks more about that topic. So go ahead and drop that comment down below. In the meantime, stay tuned for the next episode of Filming the Wild.